first launch your freelancing business, you dream of serving amazing clients who are going to pay you the big bucks to help them rock it out online. But mama, before you lift a finger, it's essential that you take the time to set up your business relationships the right way. I call this time to be a big kid. In this video, I'm sharing with you my 3 favorite words in the English language, which also happen to be the 3 things you absolutely must do before you begin doing any work with a client. Hey mama, Lauren Golden here with a new episode of Free Mama TV, showing moms like you how to start and run a successful freelancing business from home. Subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new episode of Free Mama TV right here every Tuesday. Mama, you may have started your virtual business because you wanted to make money from home. And if you're like me, you wanted to make money from home so that you could work on your own terms and spend more time with your kiddos. Way to go, mama. But that also means you're a business owner now. And so it's time to act like one. Now, this video isn't about business structures. So whether you're a sole proprietor, LLC, or corporation, I need you to listen up. We're gonna get like eyeball to eyeball here through the computer, of course, because I wanna talk about some small business risks that you could be making yourself vulnerable to if you don't protect yourself the right way. We are gonna dive in, starting with those 3 little words. If you're new to me and the Free Mama, you might not know where this is going, but if you have been a part of our community for a while, I want you to sing it loud and proud with me. Those 3 words that we're discussing today are communication, expectations, and boundaries. Now, don't worry, we're going to talk about exactly what I mean by those 3 words, but also how to implement it in a way that you can mitigate some of the risks that your small business might otherwise encounter. Mama, I am super excited to dive into these 3 little words because, like I mentioned earlier, I talk about them all the time. But what I think is going to be really effective for us to do first is to think about, what do these 3 words actually mean before we dive into how to actually implement them with our clients in our business. And so where do we go when we need to know information? Google. We are actually going to Google these words and talk about what they mean. Okay, first up, what is communication? Communication essentially is defined as exchanging of information or news, sending or receiving information. That's all we're talking about with communication. Now, what happens, do you think, when we don't communicate? Information is not being passed from one person to another. And as we know, what I know, you might not know. And this is where assumptions come into play. And so communication is essential in every relationship, whether it's with your child or your spouse or your mother or your freelancing client, because without the exchange of information, people are operating under assumptions, which means there is a huge margin for error in terms of what people might be thinking. If you're guessing, you could be really far off. So communication is absolutely essential. Now, when it comes to communicating in a way that you are going to mitigate risks in your business, it's really essential that you kick off any relationship with a very in-depth proposal. The reason the proposal is an important part of the process of onboarding a new client is because it is going to itemize the exchange of information. So you have a discovery call or you're talking to a prospective client, you are going to itemize the information that you exchanged in terms of what they need done in their business and what you intend to do for them. And you're going to be as specific as possible. You are going to list out not just the services, but the value that those services provide. And by exchanging this information and documenting it, not just talking about it, but you're documenting it on a piece of paper, you are going to avoid a future miscommunication because you will both have a document that you have agreed to that you can go back to as a point of reference. You're not operating under your own assumptions. You have exchanged information and documented it in the proposal. And so you are both quite literally on the same page. The second thing we're going to talk about are expectations. Now, if communication hasn't happened, it is very unlikely that people's expectations are going to be met. So we always start with communication. We enter into a new client relationship with a proposal. Now, when it comes to expectations, the definition that the glorious Google is giving us is that it is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, or a belief that someone will or should achieve something. Now, this makes perfect sense, right? This is an expectation. The client has an expectation that if they hire you to write emails for them, that you will write those emails, right? That's the expectation. But when it comes to actually putting this into practice, we need to create a contract. So we move from a proposal that everybody agrees to over to a contract, which is going to be a binding agreement that is going to not just have the communication from the proposal, but the expectation from both ends, by the way, because any relationship involves two people, meaning it goes both ways. And we're going to lie out the expectations of the arrangement in the contract. Now, some of the expectation around the services might have been spelled out in the proposal, which you can attach as an addendum to the contract itself. But you, the freelancer, have expectations too. For example, you expect to be paid. Maybe you expect to be paid by the first of the month. You expect to be paid a certain amount. Maybe you expect to be paid bi-weekly or 50% in advance, or whatever the case may be. You have those expectations. But if you're not letting the other person know those expectations and coming to a mutual understanding, there's going to be disappointment. You are going to potentially put yourself in a situation where the client doesn't pay you on time, or they don't pay you at all. And so you need to make sure that you're communicating your expectations, you're exchanging information, you are crystal clear about what should be done of you and what should be done of your client. I get a lot of questions in the Facebook group from moms who want to know what to charge for social media management. And I always answer with the same thing. There has to be an exchange of information. All social media isn't created equally. Are you just doing their Facebook? Are you doing Facebook and Instagram? Are you doing Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, Twitter, and YouTube? If you don't communicate what's going on, then you can't establish your expectations when it comes to compensation. They can't establish their expectations in terms of what success looks like to them if they don't communicate what platforms they're looking to have a presence on. What are the goals for that? Are they looking to be present and be seen every single day with the post? Are they wanting to launch a video once a month, once a week, once a day? These are all things that you communicate so that you can hone in on the expectations that you both have of each other. It's a give and a take, and everybody will be operating under assumptions, which is no good if you don't hone in on these things. Now that we've established what communication is and we've talked about what expectations are, the third thing that we need to talk about are boundaries, because oftentimes we don't take the time to think about what our boundaries are until they've already been crossed. So let's take a look really quickly at what boundary actually means. A boundary is a line that marks the limits of an area or a dividing line, or a limit of a subject of sphere of activity. Now, a quick look of personal boundaries shows that personal boundaries are guidelines, rules, or limits. We just heard the word limit, right? Or limits that a person creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for other people to behave towards them and how they will respond when someone passes those limits. There is so much there that we need to talk about. I love this because it's not just business. Communication and expectation and boundaries, these are three things that are essential to any healthy relationship. But when it comes to your freelancing business, this is absolutely essential. And it's also why so many people become unhappy at their 9-to-5, is because they feel like their personal boundaries are constantly being crossed and that they don't have the ability to do anything about it. They don't have the ability to say, like, I'm not working past this time. Someone else dictates those things to you. But when you start a freelancing business, you get to establish these things for yourself. And so when it comes to finding a limit, what is your limit in terms of how much work you'll take on? What is your limit in terms of what time you will work to at night or in the morning? Or what you will take on in terms of back and forth communication with the client? Let's say that you're designing a logo. Are you going to let them edit it until they like it? Or are you going to say up front, listen, here are my boundaries. You will get 3 edits for this price. We're going to go back to our expectations in the communication, right? And say anything above and beyond that is really outside the scope of my boundaries. You don't want to get stuck in a situation where you're dealing with somebody who's being really difficult and pushy towards you. So we talk about boundaries in terms of physical space, right? I always recommend having a home office. That's a physical boundary. We have time boundaries. If a client emails you at midnight, do you feel compelled to answer? Did they expect you to answer? You know, there's a saying that people are going to treat you how you let them. And if you continue to show up and show up and show up outside of what you've said or your boundaries, that will become the expectation from that other person. And so you also have to be self-disciplined that you stay within your boundaries, and also making sure that you are communicating them to other people. Now, the last part of this definition that I love is, how will you respond when someone passes those limits that you've established for yourself? Now, some of these things regarding your boundaries can also be established in your contract and the proposal. In fact, I recommend it. I think you should have a call with your client before you get too far down the road and say, you know what, are we going to meet weekly? Are we going to communicate via Voxer or email? And knowing that you're not just asking and leaving it open-ended, but you're also taking your personal boundaries into account. This also has to do with setting timeframes for getting certain things done. If their expectation is that emails get answered within 30 minutes, but you have 5 clients in your business and you're only working from hour to hour, then that's not going to work for you, right? So potentially that's not a great client for you. Or maybe you need to address their expectations and concerns and let them know that their clients are going to be well cared for, but it's going to be within a 12-hour time frame or a 24-hour time frame. It's not going to be immediate. And if that is something that is important to them, then you might need to know in advance that you're going to be willing to let that client go because it doesn't respect the boundaries that you've set for yourself. A great time to have the conversation about boundaries is when you're onboarding your client after you've done the proposal and the contract and gotten that signed. And you can have a team meeting, so to speak, or where you guys get together and you do some of the other onboarding things. So if you're doing general VA tasks, you might need access to an email account or your own email account, for example, or access to some of their other software programs. If you're a social media manager, you might need to go ahead and get administrative access to their social media accounts and talk a little bit about their brand and their services and their offerings. And taking the time to add boundaries to that conversation about all those other logistics is really going to help you from having future potential uncomfortable situations further down the line with this new client. Now you know the importance of communication, expectations, and boundaries in your freelancing business, and you also know how to protect yourself with proposals, contracts, and more. Now, if you want more information about how to start a successful freelancing business from home, I invite you to attend my free training. It's about 90 minutes long, and we are going to hash out all of the things that you can use to set yourself up for success as a freelancer. You will also learn about my 12-week program, which has templates for your contracts and proposals in it. And you can find a link to both of those things down below. Also, if you want to join a community of mamas just like you, I have a Facebook group where thousands of mamas come together for support and action-taking tips and motivation. And as always, if you liked this video, please let me know by liking it below, subscribe and share it with your fellow mamas, and comment below with hashtag I am a free mama if this video helped you in your freelancing business. Mitigate? Is mitigate the word? Oh my God, I have to look this up. This is sad. Mitigate? Don't you mitigate the risk? Actually, I just said my life. Reduce. Yes, there we go. I can talk to me. Oftentimes, we don't time. I'll leave my head. I hope this is making sense. Well, I think this will be okay. Anything else I want to say? I don't know if there's anything else I want to say about that. I think that's good.